Hello everyone, welcome back to the Time to Grow Up podcast. I'm your host Jaslyn, and in today's episode we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome. Before we get started, I want to go ahead and do the grown-up moment of the week. I'm actually filming this video before I work from home for the day. It's like 6:30 in the morning, and I would say that's my grown-up moment for the week because I really am trying to grind these episodes out for y'all, and I want to make sure that I'm consistent, so I'm doing it before I even log on to work this morning. And I have a meeting coming up at work that I'm not excited for whatsoever because it's just like I'm just not ready for it, and I know I'm gonna get through it. So those are like my two grown-up moments of the week. If you have any grown-up moments you want to share, let me know in the Instagram, or I think you can do a comment on Spotify or something if you're listening on audio. But yeah, today we are going to be talking about imposter syndrome. So I have dealt with imposter syndrome probably since I was young because I've always tried to start things, and as soon as I'm semi-consistent with it, I always think that I'm not good enough, or that I'm not deserving enough, or that I don't have enough experience. And it's something that I'm really trying to confront with, especially in like 2025, as I try to grow this podcast and really get into really just being my true self and doing what I want to do with my life, and not doing what I think I have to do just because of my circumstances, if that makes sense. And imposter syndrome is something that I've dealt with heavily when trying to do something creative. I know if you are creative, it is really hard to deal with imposter syndrome because you think that you're not good enough. Even if you have all this experience or all this knowledge on a topic, you just think you'll never be good enough. And that's something that we're going to talk about today. So if you don't know what imposter syndrome is, it is defined as a psychological pattern where individuals doubt their accomplishments and have a persistent fear of being exposed as a fraud. Some symptoms of imposter syndrome could be self-doubt, feeling undeserving of success, and attributing accomplishments to luck. I think this can come a lot in like the post-grad life, is like you think that you have all this education, you've been going to school for 4 years, and you're like, okay, well, it's time for me to get a job. And then you get that job and you're like, wait, did I get this job because I worked really hard, or was it just luck? Or am I like a quote unquote personality hire because I feel like I'm not meant to be in these rooms, even though I've worked so hard, I've done all this work, I've took all this time, I've took out student loans to get this degree, to get this job after college. That's something I think everyone under the sun deals with at some point in their life, is thinking that they're not good enough, or they don't have the right education or experience to do something, when in their heart and their mind they really know they do. They just feel like they haven't. So let's talk about the common symptoms of imposter syndrome a little bit more. So the first one being self-doubt. That could be persistent questioning of one's abilities and qualifications, and you often might think that you're inadequate even though you've had success over time. I've dealt with this so much because, especially with like social media, I'll be on a roll for like 2 weeks, and then I'll have a hiccup, like I miss an upload, or I don't get a video out on time, or I don't have like a set schedule of stuff to do, and I think, okay, well, that means I don't deserve this little bit of success that I'm getting. I'm just gonna stop. And you kind of have to fight through that self-doubt. You have to be like, no, I'm doing this for a reason. I know I'm meant to be here. I know I'm meant to post these videos and help people and tell my story and what I'm going through. Or maybe that's at work for you. Like, I know this project is for me, and I know that I know what I'm talking about and what I'm doing, and I'm going to push through and finish this project. Another thing would be attributing success to luck. I think a lot of people think, like, especially with like social media and content creation, a lot of people think that people's success is just luck. But there are so many artists, like I know some examples like Chapel Roan or Sabrina Carpenter. People are like, oh yeah, they like just popped out of nowhere. They're just successful just because. I bet they deal with a lot of like thinking, like other people thinking that their success is just luck, but it has taken those people like 10 years to get where they are, and them just popping off right now can seem like luck. And you might be in that situation too, where you're like, dang, I just got to this, place in my career that I really, really like and I really, really enjoy. Maybe it is just luck. Maybe my manager is just being nice and she just gave me this promotion just cause. And it's like, no, you got that position or that promotion because you deserve it, because you've been working hard. It's not luck. It's the work that you put in that got you to the position that you are today. Next is setting unrealistic standards. This could be excessively high goals and feeling disappointed when they are not met, reinforcing the feeling of inadequacy. Now, I have done this a lot, especially with, I'm going to keep doing like a social media related thing, but I'm going to try to think of some other situations because not everybody wants to be a content creator. But I feel like when you put, okay, let's talk about the gym actually. I think when you put unrealistic standards on like the gym, you think that, okay, if you've never gone to the gym a day in your life, then why are you going to set a goal to go 5 times a week before you go to work when you don't even like getting up at 6 a.m.? Like, girly, that's not realistic. And once you don't meet that goal once, you're going to think, well, maybe I'm just not a gym person. Maybe I just don't like going to the gym and I'm not going to try again because you've put this unrealistic expectation on yourself to go 5-6 times a week when you haven't even been once this week. So you have to start thinking about like, maybe my goals are a little too high right now. And maybe I just need to take one baby step instead of trying to do 10,000 steps in one day to reach these crazy goals that I've set for myself. Another thing could be discounting praise. So that could be dismissing compliments or positive feedback and feeling unworthy of recognition, often thinking others are just being polite. Now, I used to do this a lot when it would come to work. I think I would just, whenever I would get praise or like accolades at work of like, oh, you're doing such a good job, I'd just be like, okay, well, that's just a part of my job. Like, I don't need to get praise for something that I'm paid to do. But it's like, no, I do a good job at work. I put in the time in my projects and the ideas that I come up with, and I have done this recently where like maybe someone isn't recognizing the work that I'm putting in, so I recognize it myself. Like in my work, we have like these weekly meetings and we do like kudos, which is like kind of like celebrations of what people have done. And I brought up like, hey, we got a positive comment on the social media that I posted, and I was able to like answer a question, and I advocated for myself, and I was like, I'm going to celebrate what I've done and celebrate my success because I've been working on this Facebook account for the past year and a half, and I'm going to get the praise for it because I put in the work and I, cultivated this engagement on the social media, which I think needs to be celebrated, even if nobody else sees it for themselves. So you have to kind of just start really appreciating yourself for what you do every day, and that'll make you feel like, hey, I am meant to be here. I do good work in my job or at school or with my side projects. I do a good job, and I'm going to appreciate what I do. Next I didn't actually, when I was researching for this episode, I didn't realize there are actually types of imposter syndromes. I didn't realize there were different types. I thought it was just one. So we're gonna go over them because maybe you can relate to one of these more than the other. So the first one is the perfectionist. Some of those characteristics are sets exceedingly high standards for themselves and feels disappointed when they don't achieve perfectionism. The impact. This person may overwork themselves to meet their goals and feel like a failure even with significant achievements. I think this could be real for people who always want their work to be perfect, and when it isn't perfect or it doesn't come out the way that they really, really want it to, they kind of are like, okay, well, what's the point? This project isn't even meant to be shared because it isn't 100% the way I want it to be. But even if you finish something and it's not 100%, you still have something to prove for it because you took so much time and you did so much work for it to get done. The next one is the expert. The characteristics are believes they need to know everything before they considered competent. They often feel like a fraud if they don't have all the answers. The impact of this is this type may avoid applying for jobs or promotions because they don't feel qualified enough despite having necessary skills. I think this one could also contribute to analysis paralysis, which is the idea that if you want to go in on something, you research heavily. And, you might watch 1,000 YouTube videos or read 1,000 Reddit threads about what you need to do in order to, get this job promotion or start this side project. But instead of actually doing the thing, you're just sitting there and watching videos and reading articles about it all the time and not actually putting in the work. I have done this plenty of times when it comes to content creation. I would, every video ever about how to start a YouTube channel or how to start a podcast or how to start on TikTok, I've watched every single video, and it's taken me years to get to a place to actually create content because I just got stuck in that loop of I need to know everything about everything that deals with social media in order for me to be the best at it because I need to watch every single video ever made. But it's no, you just have to get in there and do something instead of just watching videos over and over again. Next is the soloist. So this prefers to work alone and feels that asking for help is a sign of weakness or incompetence. This individual may take on too much responsibility and struggle with collaboration, leading to burnout and feelings of inadequacy when they can't do everything on their own. Yeah, these ones are reading me for filth because I think in college this used to be me because I would especially when it comes to like group projects and stuff, if I felt like I could do the project all by myself, I was just going to do it all by myself and be like, okay, well, you do this part and you do this part. That's it. But when you are like this type of person, you have to realize that you doing the work for other people is not letting anyone else in the group or team that you're in learn along with you, and you're just taking on that responsibility and taking away that opportunity for someone else to learn and become a better version of themselves too in their work. So it is hard because you feel like you have to do everything on your own, and you feel like you need to do everything because you think you know everything. But in reality, we don't know everything, and some people on a team have different aspects or different experiences that can bring a little bit more to the project that you might be working on. You have to just accept help. I know it's really, really hard for people who deal with imposter syndrome, or the last episode I recorded, people pleasers, to accept help on things because they think they have to do everything on their own. But that's what people are there for. People want to help you, and people want to make sure you're doing your best. And if you don't let those people in, then you're going to be stuck in the same loop over and over and over again. Next, we have the Superwoman/Superman. This type of person feels the need to excel in all areas of life, including career, relationship, and personal pursuits. The impact: they often feel overwhelmed and believe they are not doing enough, leading to constant stress and self-doubt. I used to, when I was in school, or especially when I was in college, I think I was this person because I wanted to do so much with so little time. Like, I was in school, I was taking five classes a semester. I was working a part-time internship, and I wanted to post on social media, and I wanted to make sure I was spending time with my friends, and I wanted to make sure I was like going to the gym consistently so I, wouldn't, be out of shape. And you have to be realistic with yourself. You cannot do everything. Like in the episode of when I was talking about the winter arc, you have to be realistic with the goals you set, because there are seasons in your life where you can't do everything. Like, you just can't. Like, there's going to be seasons where you have to do, maybe it's a more busy season in your career, so you can't really focus on going to the gym 3 or 4 times a week. You have to only go once, or you only have to do workouts like on the weekends. Or maybe you're in a season when you're really, really trying to grow the side hustle, so you can't really spend that much time with your friends. So it's like a push and pull, and I think it's really hard for people who deal with imposter syndrome or people pleasing to kind of get that concept down of like, you won't have time for everything, and that's okay. You just have to make sure you're prioritizing what you really want to get done in this season. And that is hard for people to do because we think that we should be able to do everything under the sun when we can't. The next is the natural genius, or this is actually the last one. Characteristics: believes they should excel at everything without much effort or practice. They equate success with ease. This person may feel fraudulent when they struggle or have to work hard to achieve their goals, fearing they are not truly talented. This one kind of read me too, because when I first started social media, like, I would see so many people blowing up on TikTok, and I'm like, okay, that looks so easy. Like, I can just post one video and I'll blow up. And then I posted one video and I got 300 views and like 5 likes. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe it is a little bit harder than I thought. And I think this is really, really true when, like, you're trying to do something physical too. Like, you want to become a runner and you're like, oh, running looks so easy. All you do is just run. But when you start running, you come to realize, like, there's different breathing techniques. You have to make sure you have the right shoes. You have to make sure you have the right form. You have to make sure you're hydrating. Like, there's so many things that come to being really good at something. And when you see other people who are just quote unquote naturally good, you think you can be that too, but you don't see all the work that these people have put in over the years to get where they are today. So you just have to make sure you're not comparing your, chapter 1 to chapter 22 to someone else, because I think that's where imposter syndrome really comes in, is when you start comparing yourself to others and thinking that, oh, well, if that person can do it, I can do it. But you don't see all the stuff this person has done to get to where they are today, and you're not at that place, and that's okay. Next, let's talk about why do we experience imposter syndrome. Some common causes of imposter syndrome could be societal pressures and expectations, comparison to others, especially on social media, like I said, and upbringing and family dynamics, including parenting styles that either excessively praise or criticize. So yeah, I think this could come from childhood as well, especially if you had parents who gave you so much praise and you think that you're like the best thing since sliced bread, which is fine. Like, some parents are like that. Or it might be the opposite, where your parents criticized you for every little thing that you do. So now you internally criticize yourself for things that aren't really that big of a deal, but maybe when you were a child, your parents made it seem like it was a big of a deal. So now you're putting that pressure on yourself, when there's no need to. And maybe that's the opposite. Like if you got excessively praised as a child, now you think, oh, when I walk into a room, everybody should like understand like what I'm thinking, what I'm trying to do. But these people don't know you like your parents do. So they're not going to know like all this work that you've done or all these accolades that you've had. You have to advocate for yourself and say like, hey, I've done this. You should, appreciate my work. But also you have to kind of be a little bit humble, and you don't want to come in there and be like, oh, well, I'm the best, blah, blah, blah. You got to figure out that happy medium. Now, let's talk about some strategies to kind of battle imposter syndrome, because honestly, I don't think imposter syndrome is a thing that you can just get over. It's always going to be kind of in the back of your mind, especially when you get into these higher levels of success or you start breaking through your goals. There's just going to be another level of imposter syndrome that you're going to have to deal with. But if you have the strategies and the mindset in place, then you'll be able to get through it a lot easier. So the first thing is you want to recognize and acknowledge your feelings. Make sure that you're validating your feelings. Like you can feel like an imposter, but also you have to keep telling yourself like, no, I'm meant to be in these rooms. I'm meant to be at this job. I'm meant to be doing what I'm doing. And this isn't luck. This wasn't just gifted to me. I've worked hard to get to this position where I'm at, and I'm going to continue doing what I need to do to keep it. You want to reframe your thoughts, so you could challenge your self-talk. So if you're thinking like, oh man, like I'm not meant for this project, I'm not meant to be, maybe you're even trying to like write a book or something, and you're like, man, maybe I'm not a good writer, I'm not, I don't know how to write a book. But it's like, no, you have this story in your head and it's gonna get written out. The story was given to you somehow, some way, for a reason, and it needs to be shared. You just have to reframe your negative self-talk and your negative feelings about your work and what you're doing, and kind of reframe it positively. So, and also make sure you're celebrating your achievements. I know this is so hard, especially like I was saying in the People Pleasers episode. If you're like me, you kind of don't celebrate your successes. You just think it's like another checklist off a box. Like some things I think of right now is like graduating college, getting your first job. Like you might seem like, oh, that's just something I have to do. Like I was going to graduate college anyway. I was going to find a job anyway. What's the need to celebrate? But you have to think that there are some people still out here who graduated a year or 2 years ago who can't find a job, or who are struggling graduating college, or they just want to, and you just need to celebrate your successes and celebrate like, hey, I did do that. I did a good job, and I'm acknowledging and I am congratulating myself. Even if nobody else does, I'm congratulating myself for the hard work that I've put in to get to the place that I am today. Next, I think it would be really, really helpful to actually talk to a friend, probably like who's in kind of the same boat as you. Like my best friend, we both work like social media communications, and we do talk about imposter syndrome a lot because we are both minority women. And it is nice having someone to open up to and be like, hey, I'm feeling like this today at work, and she can kind of relate and say like, this is my experience, this is how I'm dealing with it. So if you have someone who is kind of in the same boat, or if you just have someone you can talk to about those feelings and kind of just get them out, and for someone to tell you like, no, you are doing a good job, you do deserve to be at that job or in that relationship or doing that project that you're working on, to kind of battle that self-talk that is not good for the situation that you're in. Next, you want to kind of try to have a growth mindset instead of like a fixed one. So instead of thinking like, okay, well, this is the only job I'm ever going to have, like I'm never going to find a high paying job that's for me. You have to like think of it as growth. Like, what can this job do for me today that'll get me to the next step tomorrow? And you have to just keep thinking about like that every day until you get to like where you want to get to. That is my episode about imposter syndrome. We talked a lot about the different types of imposter syndrome, what imposter syndrome is, and how to actually deal with those feelings of being an imposter. I know it is hard to deal with this, especially I feel like when you're in your 20s, it is hard because you just don't know what you're doing, because you might not have parents who have taught you that, or just maybe your parents don't really like to talk about feeling like an imposter, because mine don't really, honestly. And, this is why I created this podcast, is to kind of be there for someone who might be going through these same emotions and these same feelings and these same things as me, and who want to have someone who can relate and who can understand, like, it's hard. It's hard being a post-grad in 2024, having a full-time job with other responsibilities, and just having these feelings of like not being enough, or wanting to please others when you don't even know how to please yourself sometimes. So yeah, that is why I started. But before we end, I'm going to do some journal prompts for you guys, because I like doing that. And I actually posted one on my TikTok, and you guys really seem to like it. So I think I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to post the journal prompts that I have in the episodes on TikTok as well and I think November, some creator is doing like a Notebook November challenge. I'll try to tag her in the show notes or whatever if anybody wants to check her out, but that's where I got the idea to post the journal prompts. But the first one is, when did you first experience feelings of imposter syndrome and what triggered those feelings? Number 2, reflect on a recent achievement. How did you feel about it in the moment? What do you think it contributed to those feelings? Write down 3 accomplishments you're proud of. How can you remind yourself of these in moments of self-doubt? And number 4, who in your life could you talk to about your feelings of imposter syndrome? How might sharing your experiences help you? So, those are the journal prompts I have for you guys, and that is the end of today's episodes. I hope you guys enjoy. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcast, make sure to give us 5 stars, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye!